a very interesting session today, organized by ASSOCHAM. Indian mining equipment industry, how to assess the opportunities and also addressing the concerns. So we will have a kind of a 2 hour session broken into two separate discussion sessions. Uh, Maybe in the first 1 hour, we'll focus on that what exactly is the opportunities, are the opportunities for Indian mining equipment industry, and what are the concerns that actually are on the table that need to be addressed by all sorts of stakeholders. Okay, so I will start with a brief presentation. By the way, my name is Vidut Chakrabarti. I'm a partner in the Mining and Metals Advisory in KPMG, a management consulting firm. And I would like to make a 10-12 minute presentation just to set the context with a few data points on the table. Then, of course, we have a team of eminent panelists from the industry, right from Sri U. Kumar to Mr. Pankaj Satija, Mr. Dhagat, Dilip Kumar Mohanty, who is the Director of Production from NMDC. I think we'll also be joined by Mr. Pavan Kumar, Head Marketing, and I think the Director of Operations of Singareni Collieries Company Limited. So we'll have a very, very enriching discussion session, which I sincerely look forward to. And I welcome all the participants to this session. Let me start with my context setting presentation. First of all, let us appreciate what we have on the table as a sector, mining as a sector, which actually contributes to the Indian economy to the tune of around 2.3% in terms of GVA, gross value added, FY21 data. The, the contribution to the GDP is lower, which is around 1.63%. But at the same time, we must also recognize that mining as a sector, not just for the core business, but the allied, downstream and ancillary segments as well, it provides significant employment to the people. Estimated number is 2.5 crore and above, both direct and indirect put together. So mining as an industry, which is actually sitting at the upstream of the value chain, and then we are into metals and then infrastructure, which actually drives the economy, but it has a significant play in the overall game, okay, which needs to be taken into with due importance if we really want to grow in terms of our economy. So whereas we have had some achievement in the past, but in terms of potential for growth, if we look at the next 10 years, there is a significant growth potential. Okay, like as you can see, in comparison to the other mineral-rich economies, be it the Australia, South Africa, Canada, where the GDP contribution to their respective economies is much higher, above 7% in all three. We are sitting at a meager 1.63% in terms of the contribution of the sector to the economy. And when people are talking about a $5 trillion economy for us by FY25, that's the vision of the Honorable PM. If we want to achieve that, okay, we really need to grow at a CAGR of 20% odd over the next 3 to 4 years and make our contribution of the sector from 1.63 to the tune of 3% to the GDP. Then only this growth potential is probably going to be achieved. Now, what are the upsides on the table? How do I kind of create the growth? If you look at the per capita consumption of the key metals, be it steel, be it aluminum, and other commodities like cement, we have a significant head, I mean, headway available to us where we need to up our game to create demand for this. And as per the National Steel Policy 2031, if we really want to grow to say that 300 million tons of steel, then the steel capacity in the country, which will essentially require to the tune of around 430, 440 million ton of iron ore, then for iron ore, we need to grow at a CAGR of around 8.7 to 8.8%. Similar story for bauxite, which is aluminum industry. In the next 10 years or so, we will need to achieve a CAGR of 10 to 11%. So as far as opportunity is concerned, there is great opportunity ahead of us. Mining needs to contribute, and then only this economic growth is going to be possible. Now, there are certain strong fundamentals and policy support which have been. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. So there have been certain strong fundamentals which I have discussed in earlier slide, and certain policy support in play which can actually bring in huge opportunities for mining. And naturally, if mining happens, it cannot happen without the mining equipment industry. So there are some higher demands for steel and aluminum, uh, for metals.
Vidyut,
There
I'm
are certain.
sorry, your
But
slide is not visible.
Kathleen,
Your slides are not visible, Vidyut.
Is it? Can you see
Yeah.
the slide now?
No,
No?
Vidyut.
no, not yet.
Okay, okay. Let me reshare. Let me reshare. Is it visible now?
No.
Not yet.
It is saying your screen is black,
starting
sir,
to
right
share
now.
content.
Please continue it. I think it's getting loading.
Yeah, now it is.
Okay, sir.
Now it is there. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So there are certain strong fundamentals and some policy support, be it the relaxed FDI norms, allowing private participation in a bigger way, inviting commercial mining not only for coal but other commodities in a bigger way, and a lot of auctions happening across the mineral-rich states of the country. There is a reduced customs duty when you are actually importing equipment or parts of it, and certain tax and other incentives available on the table. Now, all these with the combined with some of the innovations that I'm sure the mining equipment industry are trying to bring in by working closely with the software and other technology providers to bring in the norms for safety and other things. It is actually going to drive the growth for mining equipment industry as well. Okay, that is the limited point. Now, how the evolution of mining and construction equipment sector has been over the last, say, 60 years in the country. I mean, before 1960, it was the demand was entirely made by imports. I mean, whatever mining we had in the country at that point in time. I think BEML in 1964, they began their domestic production of dumpers, dozers, etc., as the first so-called indigenous mining equipment company for the country. And then over a period of time, in the next 5 to 6 years, some private sector players also came into the play and market. But then we were going on. But after the kind of liberalization of the economy in the 90s, I think post 2000, we actually have seen a great entry for by multiple private sector players in this particular space. You be it the Caterpillar, the Hitachi, JCB, L&T, Terex, Komatsu, everyone. There are so many players in the play which either have their own manufacturing facilities or some marketing and maybe a deal with other international companies who bring in the equipment here, assemble here, and sell in the marketplace. So there has been quite a bit of, quite a bit of energy that has been put into place in the last 20 years by this industry segment. If you look at the market size for this industry over the last, let's say, 4 5 years, it actually shows great potential. There is a recent report of September 2021 which has estimated that in the next 5 years, the market potential for mining and construction equipment industry in India is going to touch to the tune of around $8,000 million plus. I mean, that's the kind of growth aspiration this sector can have. and maybe more, with more mines opening up, both in iron ore and iron ore, bauxite, and other commodities that are being kind of offered to the private sector in a bigger way by states like Odisha, by states like Jharkhand and Goa, Karnataka, etc. Now, there are four elements into the play when these mining equipment industry wants to have this growth. It is not just having the equipment and kind of selling it to the sector. The sector also has certain expectations from them, and those expectations are being clearly spelled out, and we can bucket that in four categories. First and foremost is safety. Okay, that is the prime importance. That what kind of features that they are enabling in their equipment, which will drive almost zero incidents from this. Okay, that is one. Second is efficiency. That in terms of their readiness to service the customers in a way, it is not just providing an equipment and getting into the initial 5 years of maintenance contract, but also how to create the ecosystem for the miners so that services are available almost on a real time basis, so that the downtime of equipment can be reduced as much as possible. That's another expectation on the table. Third is cost effectiveness. Whether buying larger capacity of equipment or technology enabled set of equipment is going to drive cost effectiveness for the miner, and not just the economy of scale, the other features of cost optimization, other levers of cost optimization, whether that can be driven by these service providers, be it the OEM or whosoever is selling the equipment. Last but not the least is innovation. That our mining industry in India is not exactly the same how Australia operates or South Africa operates. So, recognizing the business context of the Indian mining sector, what sort of innovation that can be driven by Indian mining equipment industry, which can actually resolve some of the ground level operational issues for the miners. That is, those are the four specific expectations. If you look at a little bit of deep diving over next 2 minutes, if you look at the cost curve of major miners across the key commodities like iron ore, bauxite, limestone, chromite, etc. And I have just taken across some of the key mines in the country based on their recent returns submitted to the IBM in 2021, and just the mining cost of mining. There are around 50% of those key mines which are actually above the mean level out of the set that I have shown in my slide today. So many of the mines are actually sitting in above quartile 2, okay, quartile 3, and some of the mines in quartile 4, okay. So there is significant opportunity to bring down this cost of mining, and the miners are struggling on how to do the overall mine planning and then plan the operations and do that. So this mining equipment industry has a significant role play here to work very collaboratively with the miners to bring down this cost of mining. And if we can do that, it will have a snowball effect in the downstream to bring down the cost of to bring down the development cost of infrastructure for the country. So the entire economic ecosystem will benefit if we can work collaboratively here. And there can be three specific levers for cost optimization, which to my mind, are critical. One is asset management or operations excellence. So that is probably the primary one and the low hanging one. Second, we are mind doing to the best of their capability and capacity, which is peak profile optimization. So whether the equipment players, along with the MDOs or mining contractors, along with the mine owners, can work in a collaborative way to optimize this for the life of the mine. And the third, of course, is digital transformation, which is, I mean, the new kid on the block, and which is definitely going to drive lot of efficiency for the mining sector in India. As far as safety and innovation is concerned, I think automated mining, I'm not saying driverless trucks and all those right away, which is probably very prevalent in Pilbara in Australia and other places. But we can always aim towards that. And in order to achieve towards that goal, the mining equipment industry needs to work with the ecosystem of service providers, the hardware equipment providers, and software providers. Okay, to really drive towards that goal of automated mining in the country. Okay, so how this integration is going to be more fruitful over the next 10 years is a thing to see, and we'll hear from the panelist after this presentation that how this can be achieved. So there are three market drivers actually which can actually drive towards that goal for automated mining. One is growing concerns for productivity improvement that everyone has. Everyone wants to be cost effective, more efficient, etc. Second, there is growing concerns for reduction in operational costs. That is second. And the third is increasing the need for improving worker safety. So if so equipment industry has a role to play across all these, okay, to work very collaboratively with the ecosystem. It is not just a seller and a buyer kind of relationship. They need to see their role in a much integrated manner. Then the sales will also automatically increase is my take. Okay. We all know about the major challenges the pandemic has had, not just, I mean, not just on the miners, also on the MDOs or the mining contractors, naturally, which had an impact on the mining equipment players as well, be it payment related, be it the difficulty in getting the skilled manpower, local business ecosystem related issues and all that. But I mean, hopefully as we are coming out of that pandemic, and I mean the pace of growth that we are expecting from the industry is much higher now. Okay, probably this is the time to kind of reassess the situation, that how should we plan for the next 10 years. Some of the specific challenges that I'm just putting across for the panelists to deliberate more. One is financing. That is one of the key challenges for original equipment manufacturers in India, which offer limited financing.
Bidu, you're there?
What happened? Amit? The interruption, Amit?
Amit, Bidu is there.
What happened? Amit? Is there an interruption or is it deliberate term?
No, I think, sir, Bidu got some bandwidth issue.
Okay.
I request all speakers to mute, please. Amit, can you check with Bidyut?
Sir, Vidyut sir has got disconnected, sir. He will rejoin in the 2 minutes, sir.
I request all speakers to mute, please. All speakers mute, please.
Sorry?
I request all speakers to mute.
Okay.
All Bidyut also.
Vidyut sir?
Am I audible, Amit?
Yes, sir. Please go
Yes,
ahead, sir.
Mr. You are. Yes.
Okay. My sincere apologies to all the eminent panelists and the audience for getting disconnected. So this, I'm on my last slide. I hope I was audible in the previous slide. So I'm just on the last slide. I won't take much time, just a couple of minutes more. So there are certain challenges, and this is essentially the questions on the table for the panelists to discuss and deliberate further. One is financing. I guess the original equipment manufacturers in India offer limited financing options, and this is one of the key challenge. Second is rising fuel prices. Then how do we kind of in the rising fuel price scenario, how do you optimize my fuel efficiency within the equipment by through innovations and other things? That is second point on the table. Unavailability of skilled manpower. That is one of the key challenges for the industry to my observation, that how are we planning to train with the kind of growth that we are planning in terms of sales of so many new equipment, especially the latest technology enabled equipment. It is very important to upskill the people who are going to run the machines, who are also going to maintain the machines. And so how are we planning the overall training and capacity building, related to that? That is another challenge on the table. Delay or closure of projects due to statutory or other clearance issues has also not been helping the cause for these players to really plan their sales and in terms of their manufacturing capacities over the years. And there is another challenge which I believe will also be touched upon by the panelists, is the component provider related challenge. So there are certain specific spare parts or other components are not easy to get, which may be a little high end. I'm talking about the high end component parts. So there is a high variability in terms of these kind of demand and also availability. So because of this, this actually provides a challenge for capacity planning, okay, for the component providers people, as well as it is a challenge in terms of which actually leads to high downtime of the equipment. Okay, so these are some of the thoughts that I just wanted to convey and kind of submit to the panel of panelists. Okay, and now it is time to really hear from them as they are the experts of the industry. So Amit, if it is okay, depending on the, I mean, presence of the panelists, I can just, I'm not going in any particular sequence. May I
Yes,
just,
sir.
may I just request now Sri Pankaj Satija ji, okay, who is the CEO of Tata Steel Mining, and share
Sir,
his initial thoughts.
sir, please take Satija, sir. Afterwards, you can introduce any other person, sir.
Okay, no problem then. So maybe I can request a senior veteran of the industry, Sri U Kumar sir, who is a senior member of the ASSOCHAM National Council on Mines and Minerals, and also the advisor coal for the Aditya Birla Group. U Kumar sir, if you would kindly throw some light and your initial thoughts on the topic of discussion today, will really be enriched.
Thank you, Mr. Chakravarti. Right at the outset, I'd like to compliment you on an excellent presentation on context setting. I think that has brought out the entire paradigm of the problem in a very clear focus. We are aware of the fact that our country is blessed with a lot of mineral resources. We are doing in certain minerals very well. Actually, we are third largest producer of coal. Sheet mica, we are producing the largest. We are fourth in iron ore, chromium, fifth in bauxite, fifth in zinc, 7th in manganese, 7th in lead, 7th in sulfur, 11th in titanium, and host of minerals we're producing. Opportunities are endless. We have a land area which has not even been explored, and even exploration part, lots remains to be done. Mr. Chakravarti rightly mentioned about the project closure. Let's start with the project formulation itself. Any project formulation for mining depends upon exploration. Now, the exploration, the country in the shape that we have come to, practically the exploration has stopped altogether for 6-7 years. Mining is such an important subject for the country. So there are a lot of people who are interested. And if there are too many cooks, I think the kitchen goes wrong. Probably that's what is happening. The number of amendments that mining rules and regulations are being subjected to, it throws the entire thing out of gear. So the type of rules and regulations that have been covered, that have been brought in for regulating the exploration, that has brought total exploration to stop. Not that people have not been talking about it. There's a lot of awareness of the fact, but I think the more attention it is paid to, it becomes more complex. So probably a time has come when simple thinking based on common sense and based on whatever learning has been there in the past, that approach should be, I beg your pardon, that common sense approach should be adopted, that things become practical. Now, rightly said that mining sector has huge opportunity to contribute to the GDP. At one stage, projection was there that 10 to 11% in Indian mining sector contribution would be 10 to 11% of GDP. Unfortunately, at one time probably we had the highest, which was 2.5%. We have now come down to 1.6%. So that is another issue which deserves attention. Since the opportunities are huge, the mining machinery opportunity also is huge. Mr. Chakravarti rightly said that till 64, we were totally dependent on imports. After that, BML did come into the picture. Others have followed. But the fact remains that we are basically dependent on the advanced countries, the models that are developing, the patterns that are developing. We are only sort of copying them. The original thinking, which relates to Indian conditions, and not in the conditions in the natural conditions, even the market conditions, even the availability of skilled manpower, even the availability of components, whatever Mr. Chakravarti talked about. All these aspects have got to be taken into account for ensuring a proper policy for equipment manufacturing. And we have to realize that if the manufacturers have to depend on day-to-day development in the market, it would be very difficult for them to organize things in a manner so that the future can be taken care of. Probably time has come that a central setup or central agency or a task force be created for making a projection for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years like that. So what will be the type of equipment so that the manufacturers are made aware of the requirement as ongoing requirement, and they can then equip themselves for meeting that requirement. Rightly, Coal India, probably the Coal India, not by far, Coal India by far is the largest mining organization in the country. They have a well-knit setup, CMPDI, which is devoted to all these activities. Probably the responsibility could be given to CMPDI for collecting the information and data about the future developments in the market, in open mining equipment market, And that could be a guideline for the industry, manufacturing industry, to set up their facilities or to improve and modify their facilities. So that should be given a thought. And unless a centralized setup is created, I mean, we are moving in a disjointed manner. We are only reacting to situations. We are not proacting. So the time has come to proact and plan for the future. About mining itself, the hold-ups or the constraints are becoming severe by the day. One is of the law of the land. Another, the issue has become a land acquisition. Land acquisition has become a massive problem that anyone who has to face this problem simply shudders at the thought of dealing with it. I mean, one is that general reluctance of the landowners to part with the land, and then the compensation rates and R&R expenses have become so high that I am wondering if the mining will remain competitive globally. I mean, so far Indian mining is concerned, whether it will remain competitive in future. That also is as good. It's a right thing that landowners should get their compensation. They should be rightly compensated. But then it shouldn't become so heavy that the industry itself goes idle, and the industry will not be able to make progress. So this is an issue which has to be deliberated upon. I must compliment the equipment manufacturers in India. They have become very proactive. I mean, the training facilities are being offered to the purchasers of the equipment. And I have seen that such close interest is being taken by them that, periodically their experts visit the operation sites and watch the operations to find out what are the deficiencies among the operators. And then they are taken to classroom for classroom training, and their skill level is improved. So that way, the industry, the manufacturing industry, has become very proactive. But then, as Mr. Chakravarti said, this is not a one-off thing. We have to have a continuous dialogue and continuous interaction so that the equipment manufacturers as well as the users, they have a close one-to-one relation, and that the difficulties of each other are being appreciated and are being taken care of. I think we have got very eminent speakers who are lined up, and we'd like to hear from them. Just my initial thoughts that probably a central setup would be created for making a projection, a continuous projection about the requirement of mining equipment. Another thing which has come to the fore. I mean, earlier it was the mine owners who were operating the mines. The concept of MDO has come, which is very good. I mean, globally, mining operations are carried out by expert mining companies, and that is the step in the right direction. But then the system of giving assignments, system of finalizing contracts, I think that deserves a real fresh look. This concept of reverse bidding, though some people have realized that this is not the right thing, and some people have given it up, but even now there's a general tendency to opt for it. So see, if you opt for a one-off contract, let's say 100 tons of steel, I suffer a loss of 2 rupees, 5 rupees. It is one ton gone. We look for the other things. But here you are going to have contract for 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. And then you are all of a sudden you are given 5 minutes time to decide on your rate. And then another 5 minutes to devise on the rates. I mean, how does it work? How can it work? And this is why it has happened that most of the contracts which were assessed, which were based on reverse bidding, they have gone sort of non-operational. People have realized that those rates are not operational, those rates are not worth operation, and people have given it up. So probably that is another issue which should be given attention. And then because of this cutthroat competition, it is the construction equipment which are being converted into mining equipment. I mean, I remember when I joined the industry, the standard workhorse in open cast coal mine was EKG 4.6 shovel. It was a rope shovel. It used to work and work and work. It would never give up. I mean, even after 25, 30 years, it continued to work. A lot of developments have taken place. We have graduated. We have huge drag lines. We have huge shovels. We have gone up to 40 cubic meters. Drag lines have 65 cubic meter bucket capacity. All those progresses have happened. But then simultaneously, the reverse also has started happen. That the most of the MDO equipment is basically consists in 3.5 cubic meter bucket capacity, hydraulic excavators, and ordinary trucks. I mean, from economic, from cost angle, probably it works out just now because our manpower is very cheap. But as the manpower gets costly, more intensive manpower operation will not work. And then the bigger size of the mines, those cannot be handled by these small equipment. So this is one aspect where the industry as a whole, I am not saying that equipment manufacturers is the responsibility of theirs, but the industry has got a whole to think about it as to how the industry should shape up for assuming bigger sizes, bigger dimensions, and more productive. So I mean just my stray thoughts, but I'm sure that we have very learned speakers, and they would concentrate on the ideas or the things have been discussed in Mr. Chakravarti's concepts, I think, and it will be really worthwhile, this webinar. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, and I once again compliment ASSOCHAM for picking up such an important and timely subject for discussion at the seminar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar. I mean, hearing from you always has been very, very enriching for all of us in the industry with your vast experience in the industry. Thank you. One of the key takeaways from whatever points you have raised for me is re-emphasizing the point that we should not just learn from the other mineral-rich economies and probably copying their kind of ways of working or models. Our business context in India is quite different, and innovation needs to drive on all aspects very collaboratively within the ecosystem. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. May I now request one of my favorite speakers across various sessions, Mr. Pankaj Satija, who is the CEO of Tata Steel Mining. So look forward to your initial thoughts on the topic and the key points you would like to raise for us. Over to you.
Good afternoon, Judith. Good afternoon, Kumar Sahab, and all the distinguished panelists in this program. And many of audience are also known to me. They are familiar to me. So always a pleasure to interact with them. COVID time, we have no option other than to interact virtually. So what has been spoken so far reminds me of a famous story of Abraham Wald and World War II. So in World War II, many of the planes, those were in the war, when they were coming back, there was analysis going on, which are the area where the planes have got the maximum bullet hit. And the research analysis wing, they used to see which are the area of the plane which have the maximum bullet point. So they used to draw a map and seeing where the bullet hits has been the most. So it was on the wings, it was on the tails, and they decided that these are the areas which are hit most. So we need to strengthen this further. And the whole work were revolving around that. And then Abraham Wald came and he told that you are looking for the data on the planes which are coming back. But what about the planes, those who have not come back? So probably those are the areas where they have hit the most, and that's the reason that they are not survived. So look for those areas where the bullet is least in the planes which have come back. So that will give you insight how the planes, those who have been hit badly. So there is a theory of survivor bias which comes, but then it also reminds us that the way we analyze the data, how it is different from what we see. Mining equipment in India, I mean, lot many theories have gone that why we are importing everything. And instead, prior to 1960, most of these were imported. So domestic production started somewhere in 64, setting of BML. Then later on, 69, Hindustan Motors Earth Moving Equipment Division was established in Tiruvallur. And then L&T came somewhere in 74, 80 and 81, Telcon and Scott's JCB, and then later on JCB India. But still, many people highlight the point that still Caterpillar and other machineries are being imported. So why it should not be produced in India? So there are many factors. First, the bigger size factors, bigger size machines we need to produce not only for the country but for the outside. So I'm again not going with the survivor bias data, but also on both the people those who are joining the program, they're from the industry, they know it very well. Then there is a whole supply chain which must cater to meet the higher equipment, this one. And if you see the capital goods market in India, it is around 43.2 billion USD, and HEMM constitutes around 3.3 billion. So again, if you go to the data of production, earth moving and mining machinery, while the figure was 18,500 in 2015-16, it went to 31,020 in 1920, and there is a CAGR of 13.79. And if you see the import data, that is also positive. So from 3,600 crores to 4,812. However, 18-19 it was 5,600. So there also CAGR is 7.52. And incidentally, export also is not negative. 3,400 2015-16 and 3,583 in 1920. So CAGR is lower compared to the production and import, but yes, it is 1.32. So by and large, it again decides which are the equipments which are coming from overseas and which are the equipments going from India. Government has also brought many schemes. So Government of India through the Department of Heavy Industry launched a scheme, enhancement of competitiveness in Indian capital goods sector, in November 2014. And there also Center of Excellence and all those things were thought of, and Center of Excellence for Technology Development also grants were given for setting of technology development at reputed academic and research institutions. Central assistance was also given by one-time granting aid not exceeding 80% of the project cost. So Government of India has taken many such schemes as well as the programs which can be helpful to the HEMM sector in India. And then they also released a capital goods policy in 2016, another scheme of Make in India, and then enable scheme as a pilot for heavy industry export and market development, assistant scheme, HIEMDA they call it. So startup also Center for Capital Goods sector was also started. Mandatory and standardization from the Bureau of Indian Standards were also done. So by and large, government has taken certain steps to revive that. But as we all know, it is market driven, and the changes which we think is again driven by the industry and as well as by the suppliers. So many progress have made. Total cost of ownership concept had come, because we see many companies, the machines come through import, but the spares they look locally or somewhere, try to minimize the cost, and then the machine life also gets hampered. As Kumar sir was mentioning about MDO, so we need to also see in the life cycle cost analysis. So if the contract is for the longer term, probably you will get more value out of it. And if it is for the short term, then you may see many equipments are there, but the utilization is very low. So the numbers will be more, but effective utilization will be low. And in recent times, for most of the companies, they have also gone for more analysis, as I was mentioning about Abraham Wall data, that the whole design and all those numbers and the graphs, they used to come from I have worked with Komatsu machines, so I know that each shift, the analysis used to be done, that what was the lead and lift and what was the idle time. And most of the companies have also gone for fleet management system and to see that the utilization goes up. The companies have also come with telematic system, which again gives a lot of insight. There are names like LiveLink or Insight to help the industry. But what I see going forward, the industry will be needing equipments in the different form. Like the bigger companies, they will go for higher production numbers as we are seeing, and then the bigger size dumpers or bigger size machineries will come, and there the utilization part will be more important. So a lot of IoT, I would say, will go into it. The mean time to repair and the mean time to response also will be more pronounced. The 3-4 things which are going to be the trend setter, one is the climate smart mining, second is moving from diesel to electrification, and third is digitalization. These will again drive into the to the company which are big in size, and they are also responsible for their own climate change targets. Like most of the companies, when they are coming out with carbon neutral by 2040 or 2060, I mean, each company has its own uh, uh, plan, and government has given 2070. So these things will come much earlier, and we are going to see how most of the dumpers are shifting from diesel to LNG or other electrical systems. Long back, the pantograph system was very prominent, and most of the South African mines, when they were working at a higher gradient, they used to work on diesel power. But whenever they used to come to a flat road, the pantograph and the electrical system used to come into the play. Indian mining companies have also thought of changing into that system, but then probably the size of the dumper didn't allow, and the hollow design also makes an important part of it. But in all this going trend, I'd see the underground mines, they will be the trend setter, especially for electrical vehicles. And I see some of the mines, they're also going for that. And there are certain research which says that electrical mining equipment will have a stake around 40% post 2030 for overall equipment market. And again, it depends on the different companies or different countries, the operation parameters and the emission norms. As a policy part, what I feel that government should also give the bigger sizes of the lease, because when we think of the size of the deposit or the size of the machine, the size of the deposit are linked to each other. You can't have bigger size dumpers in a mine which is say 30 million ton or 40 million ton deposit throughout the life of the mine. So you need say 10 million ton and 15 million ton, which we see in Australia and South Africa. Then the logic of bigger dumpers comes into play. Autonomous, again, I will say that most of the countries where the labor costs are high, they have gone for autonomous. In India, it has always been a debate, and we get labor cheaper and available because of the socio-economic reasons also to not to go for autonomous. Again, underground mining will be the trend setter. Most of the area when underground mining will be given push, and then we'll see autonomous also coming into the play. This budget also a lot of push on infrastructure, energy transition, and capital investment for and tax saving for underground coal mines also have been given, the coal mines, and that is primarily to incentivize underground coal mines. I'm very much sure that going forward, the trend of HEMM will be more on climate, digitalization, electrical vehicle, and autonomous for the underground mines to be the trendsetter. And there are smaller mines where the smaller fleet size will always be there. But again, we need to relook from a policy perspective and from the overall perspective that those who are going for MTO, they should give a longer period of MTO so that machine utilization can go up. The concept of total cost of ownership is high, and I'm sure that also will be looked into it. Going forward, again, as the things are moving, we are seeing different sizes of the mine coming for auction. So that means that there will be opportunities for all type of player in the equipment sections also. And there will be again a gamut of a range machines which will be very advanced, and there will be machines which will be meeting the requirements of the miners, those who are running a small miners and being profitable. Various models can emerge in that perspective, whether the OEM will take care of everything at the mine itself, or JIT inventory, or spare planning only being limited to the owner. So going forward, I would see that the trend changing from, I have seen in last 10, 15 years, the equipment people, those used to be in the companies, primarily skilled in mechanical electrical aspect. The skilling part has also changed, and now mechatronics is in the curriculum of most of the VT centers in India. And this is one threat also I would see, that I personally I see that many of the big companies, this knowledge part somehow is getting diminished and going to the OEM who supplies everything. And for a better industry perspective, I would say that the skilling should be given more impetus on the company itself, and the experience of the miners in equipment planning, equipment selection should continue, and OEM should also play a bigger role in days to come. So as of now, these are my initial thoughts. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Satija. As always, you have touched upon very, very specifically on 5, 6 specific aspects that I've noted down. One of the key takeaways for me is definitely the focus on underground going forward with our resources. The depth of our resources are increasing, and maybe down the line 10 years, we need to be really ready. Keeping that in mind in terms of planning the sort of equipment that we want to bring in for underground mining. We have also touched upon is the emission aspects. When everyone is talking about ESG, decarbonization, and everything, there is a enhanced focus on that particular area. In terms of fuel efficiency and other aspects, what sort of innovation that can be brought in for low carbon, contribution from the mining equipment is also another area of importance. Third, very, very importantly, on the skilling part that you have really highlighted. Thank you so much, sir. We'll just move over to the other speakers. Um, can I request Mr. V. Srikant, the CEO Mines of Vedanta Limited, if you're there, sir, to kindly share your initial thoughts with all of us, with the audience.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Srikant, are you there? Okay.
Yeah,
Hello,
yeah.
sir. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Respected you, Kumar sir, our distinguished panelists, organizers, dear colleagues in the webinar, very good afternoon to all of you. This is a topic very close to all of us in the mining industry. And concerns, I see concerns as opportunities for further growth. And mining industry per se, in India, it evolved from manual mining to semi-mechanized to mechanized to highly mechanized. As we kept on identifying concerns, we turned them into opportunities. When the capacity of the mines were increasing years back, we started coming up with bigger equipments, but with bigger equipments, we were partially addressing the safety concerns. When blasting started becoming an issue, when we were close to habitation areas, we started looking at it, options like ripping option with the dozer, the rock breakers, the surface miners, which came into existence. And transportation related incidents, when they started happening, they're still happening. When they were increasing, we brought in several incorporations in the design, like reverse alarms. We went into audio visual alarms, then reverse cameras, proximity sensors, and mines have started designing zero reversal mines to eliminate the hazard. The point is, what I'm trying to make, as we start looking at concerns, start identifying concerns, we come up with something new. Just like after every epidemic, world has seen revolutions. And we have recently gone through a pandemic time. We are still going through that. We are yet to be out of it. So organizations, they started repositioning themselves to go digital, do a little digital, and eventually be digital progressively. And it is fast catching up. Mining industry is not aloof. It's catching up in mining industry also. But there is an issue in our country, which U. Kumar sir, he also said. It's a huge youth population, literacy going up, expectations of the people going up, but employment continues to be an issue in our country still, especially all the more in the rural areas where mining is predominant. So in our country, mechanization or technological progression, it has been relatively slow compared to other countries. So the opportunity now lies in digitalizing, to start with maybe in a small way, but it will catch up faster as we see the options now. Because environmental concerns are becoming more and more obvious, mining organizations, by willing or out of compulsion, they are moving towards net zero carbon footprint with LNG, CNG kind of fuel powering system and electric vehicles. And if you go for those options, we have right now some concerns, which again, as I said, there are opportunities, electric vehicles. We need to have more and more of electric charging stations. The recent budget passed in the parliament, that is also encouraging the battery manufacturers. And for LNG, right now, we don't have any domestic option. We have to totally import. Eventually, if we want to migrate to LNG-based fuel system, we need to have more and more terminals and network of storage facilities for a slow migration towards LNG-based equipment. And towards net carbon emission zero, green hydrogen appears to be an option, not a thing in the near future, but then it comes up in a big way now, because it is being generated from solar energy, unlike natural gas. So equipment manufacturers, out of the way the mining organizations are moving towards, they will have to configure the equipments to adapt to green hydrogen. Digitalization is definitely going to bring a lot of productivity enhancement, safety, quality, and real-time monitoring of the equipment health. As Mr. Satija touched upon, reliability-centered maintenance, we have been doing manually. The way we are looking at mean time to repair, mean time between failures, run to check, offline checks, online checks, then defining the equipment boundary, and for last time reduction. We have been doing reliability-centered maintenance, I'll say manually. Though the system what we use is SAP, but then eventually the monitoring becomes manual. With augmented reality, with machine language, that will automatically analyze the equipment parameters, that will be able to predict the failures much in advance and give us warning well in advance. Driverless truck, as we spoke, not a thing of near future, but that's the thing coming. As we see the passenger vehicles, it is going to be catching up very fast, but the mining equipment still is going to take time looking into our country's parlance. But what reminds me, years back in the early 90s, one particular equipment used to be called a Demag equipment of a German manufacturers. It was prevalent. But that time we were going for some technologically sophisticated certain options, imported options. But what I could see among the people who were operating, though the sophisticated equipments, they were easier to operate, they started opting for the old equipment which operated for more than 35,000 hours. So what I'm trying to make is, whatever technology we want to push in, that is not going to happen. It is going to be a pull thing where the industry is feeling comfortable, where the operators are going to feel comfortable, which is going to make the lives of the miners comfortable. That technology is going to stay. land constraints, they override every other consideration now today. At least in our country, we may have huge equipments. There are examples. There are large size equipments at 20 cubic meter capacity just lying idle because of land constraints. And that is something that shouldn't deter us from pushing our technological progression and whatever improvement we can make in terms of LNG, CNG, electric vehicle options, because that is what is in our battery limit. Honorable Finance Minister in 2020, she declared 1.97 lakh crores towards production-linked incentive schemes across 13 key sectors. And mining and metals, they were covered under the sector of steel. So I'm sure the mining and metal sector will get something out of it for enhancing productivity in the mining equipment sector. Then the remission of duties and taxes on the export product scheme, which was launched in 2019, which replaced the MEAS, Merchandise Export from India scheme, will ensure the exporters will get refunds on the embedded taxes and duties, which earlier were non-recoverable. It was brought about with the intention to boost exports. That's again one added advantage for our Indian mining equipment manufacturers. Now, several actions are happening across all the states. Mining is going up. I'm sure they will become operational after a year or two. So there is the huge requirement for mining equipment and focus on digitalization and ESG compliances, like it or not, they are going to be taking the center stage. So that's a great opportunity for the mining equipment manufacturers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Srikant. Some important points that you have raised, which we did not hear in the previous, speeches. You raised about the point about PLMI schemes. Yes, this is an important element in the sense that M&M is covered under steel. So we really need to kind of deep dive and understand that whether there is an opportunity in terms of incentives available within that particular scheme for the HEMM and larger mining equipment manufacturers. You also touched upon ESG in particular, especially the applicability of green hydrogen, the non-fossil fuel kind of dependencies in terms of bringing in, in order to be more environmentally compliant from ESG perspective. Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Just moving on, if I may now request Mr. Dilip Kumar Mohanty, who is the Director of Production at NMDC Limited, to kindly share his thoughts with the audience, please. Mr. Mohanty, if you're there, please.
Mr. Chakravarti, and good afternoon to all of you. And as I am just watching it now, all the eminent panelists, they have already expressed their views. And I should say that today morning there was a meeting with the Ministry of Mining. They have shared a document of Vision 2047 for the mining. And I should appreciate that ASSOCHAM has linked up this mining equipment, how it will be linked into it, the timing of it, with a aim of going high in Vision 2047, where we require those aspects also, in addition to our mining plan and how to increase the our economy, and this will be a part of it. The timing of this seminar is coming in the right way. So I'm thankful to ASSOCHAM for giving me an opportunity. And the morning it was discussed that how to give our thoughts to give this vision to the 47. I'll just bring out few aspects only because many of the speakers have already covered many of the items. As you know that in India, we are going for two types of mining, basically, that is open cast or surface mining or underground mining. And in NMDC, we go for mostly with surface mining. And the equipments which are being covered, that includes like shovel, dumper, dozer. But here only I have to bring out 2 to 3 factors in keeping in mind that presently we are going for, because our mines are basically fully mechanized mines. and there we go for higher capacity equipments. But we are having very limited sources of supply of those things. And already it was brought out by Mr. Vidyut, very nicely covered that the financing part, then people have to look into the rising fuel prices and to think for the alternate fuels where we have to use, keeping in mind of the green energy concept, and skill development for operating those items, and different type of new equipments with proper spare planning. And so, because majority of the items what we are buying today are mostly imported, and keeping in mind of the government's scheme for Make in India, those things should come to India, because many of the times we find difficulty if today I process an order for procurement also, it takes 2 to 3 months in our cycle of processing and placement of order, and but realizing the equipment is takes around 9 to 10 months or more than a year or so, because majority of they are imported. There, the financing is very much essential. How these big players like Komatsu or L&T Komatsu or Caterpillar or others, they should come forward with a different type of equipments which is required for bigger mining people. In addition to the smaller sector, only BML is a player from the government side presently, but other players also need to come, because as I am seeing that only 2 to 3 players are there. Many new technologically advanced equipments required to come into picture, because in Indian mining sector, they are all mostly manually controlled vehicles are there, or we may think of going for automation in those items. Like in a futuristic mines, we have to think for going for automation. Like already here also we are thinking like fleet management system or vision enhancement system to keep in mind the safety aspects of the equipments during critical weather times, like in a rainy season or in a foggy weather, how to operate it to be safe also. These things are required to be added into that. And we need, I will just say, these things are to be incorporated in the existing equipments, or it has to come here where we will have a better output, because for a mining industry like us, where we require the not only to enhance the production capacity, and we have to see that evacuation and production related to availability of the equipment. And rightly pointed out by one of our speakers that different mechanisms are available, but that need to be addressed by the suppliers. So a lot of improvement is required in this system to bring in new technology with the spare management, because presently all of the major equipments are being imported, and the availability of spare is another issue for us. Though we have introduced some system of mark, like the system where the supplier, we allow them to keep the spares available with them. They only evaluate in the 5 year 6 year times what are the spares are required, they will bring and keep it. But as pointed out, if we go for a longer period of operation where the total cost of production will be low, there it needs a holistic approach towards view towards the spare management system. And in the future, we may have to switch over to like electrical vehicles, that those small vehicles may be coming in the near future, but for the bigger vehicles, how it will go with a charging system that need to be incorporated, those things are to be looked into. And here there are many suppliers are also there, those are the equipment manufacturers there, they should look into this. For the futuristic mining approach, we need to have those systems to this. Like I will say that only with a going forward, we must have advanced equipments, preferably make in India, because majority are being imported now. That is why we are having issues. So they have to take into that with the spare management in the scope for a longer period, keeping safety factors for the equipment to run in adverse weather conditions, and it must be operator friendly also. Those things they have to keep in mind. These are few things I am just adding it, because already speakers have added many things. And thank you for giving.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Mohanty, for bringing in the ground level challenges
Exactly.
for implementation of various types of equipment. You spoke about some specific challenges which cannot be ignored in order to have a realistic plan of growth and in order to have a realistic plan for introduction of new technologies that we are planning to do in Indian mining scenarios. Thank you so much. Now, I I actually set up the discussion in a way that we wanted to hear from the miners first, who are actually the procurers of equipment, and leaving the last to the equipment manufacturers like BML for the discussion, so that Mr. Pawan Kumar, who is the head of marketing at BML, can get all the inputs, from the key miners,
Sure.
and then kind of enlighten us with his thoughts that what may be the strategy as one of the key equipment manufacturers in the country and the oldest one, that how should they plan for the way ahead for the next 10 years and beyond. Over to you, Mr. Kumar.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Good afternoon to each and one of you. First of all, I would like to compliment and thanks ASSOCHAM for organizing this to enjoy. I would say that it is one of the opportunity came out of COVID. Otherwise, this VCs or this seminars, webinars on through digital mode, it was very, very rare, and all the people. I will not take much time, just a few this thing. As Mr. Chakravarti has told that BML was the first company which we came in 1964 to manufacture indigenous mining equipments. Actually, this in 1964, Army used to import a lot of dozers from Japan in particular, Japan and USA, all those army. So to cater the demand of defense sector, a thought was given by government that why not to produce or manufacture the equipments in India with the collaboration of one of the partners from abroad. So in 1964, the BML came into existence, and we had a collaboration with Komatsu. And at that point of time, to cater the defense equipment, defense market, defense requirement, smallest dozers of 90 HP or 180 HP, they were the first dozers which were produced in India, and from 1964 onwards. And then slowly over a period of time, definitely we have indigenized those equipments. And parallelly, the industry which, the company which was set up to cater defense, and this mining equipments are also came into the foray. And mining equipments, bigger dozers of say 320 HP or 400 HP bulldozers. And parallel to that, dumpers of 35 ton capacity, 50 ton capacity. This company, we started from there onwards. And now I am happy to inform that as of now, dumper to the capacity from 35 ton to 200 ton. Now we are producing in India, and they are available where this major of the components are indigenously developed. Recently, we have supplied 150 ton and 200 ton plus dumpers to particularly to coal mining in SCCL and NCL, where the equipments are giving a good availability. One or two equipments they are applying for the last 3 years. And as far as this opportunity in mining is concerned, definitely opportunities in the coming days, it is there, no doubt. On and off, we have been hearing various contradictory reports that coal will vanish in 28 or 30 or something like that, various reports coming. But now it looks like coal is going to remain, and maybe for another up to 2040 or something like that. Coal in addition to other minerals, where this requirement of course, for iron ore, limestone, bauxite, it is going to stay in the market. So there is a good opportunity for mining equipments, and we as an OEM, definitely we are at par with MNCs or whatever technologies available abroad. We are trying to bring in India and make it to indigenously. At the present, our equipments, most of the equipments, indigenous contents are almost 85 to 90%. And at any point of time, we are able to service the mining industry. Of course, whatever technology available abroad, 100%, I mean, it's not available with the Indian supply chain or people. We are unable to cope up with 100% with that. But even then, we are giving a good fight in to MNCs in India. And because one of the biggest indigenous manufacturer for earth moving equipment is available in India, there is a price check for these imported equipments. All these, whether it is Komatsu or Caterpillar, to whom we are giving, we are trying to give a fight. We are giving a fight. Their prices are under check, and that way, my company is contributing to the Indian industry right from the 1964 onwards. And whatever experience this mining industry has faced in the past, maybe they were unable to plan their revenue budgets because these spare parts pricing or availability, there was uncertainty of that. So in learning from those, various models have come up in the market, and those models like cost cap or mark or GPCC, like guaranteed parts consumption. So various models have come where all the OEMs are forced to quote the equipment at a lowest prices, and also for the spare parts planning. I mean, now the industry need not to worry about the spare parts planning. Once the equipments are purchased with cost cap or mark or GPCC, because OEMs, they themselves will plan for supply of spares. The items, spares which are required during first year, second year, OEMs of their own, they are planning, and they are stocking almost at the pit head level. Like in BML, we have our offices or stores across all the mining pit heads, whether it is Singrauli or Bilaspur or you name anything, Nagpur, Chandrapur, everywhere all our stores and service staff, they are available, which will take care of the aftermarket of these equipments. And with the cost cap and mark, mining industry, definitely they have saved money. And of course, in some of the things where, as Mr. U. Kumar had informed, that in reverse bidding, there also sometime we need to take a beat. Of course, it is a competitive market. We are prepared for that. And all the OEMs, they take care in reverse bidding. Sometime you have to take a beat. But we have to go forward. As far as safety of the equipment and features are concerned, we are also trying to bring in the latest safety. This industry with the safety features started from the ropes, cabins, which gave a lot of safety to the operator in the earlier days. Then auto fire protection system. Now latest is anti-collision devices, operator fatigue system, and more electronic embedding with these equipments. It is definitely providing safety features to the equipments. And now these emission norms as far as this mining equipments are concerned, as of now, there are no norms. But from 2024 onwards, emission norms are expected. definitely we will cope up with that, and to save the environment, people are coming forward to apply those norms. DGMS has helped a lot in devising these safety features. Whenever any accident happens, DGMS will reach there immediately and come out with their suggestions. And they will also force OEMs to, endorse those requirement of safety items. So DGMS is also playing a good role in devising these safety items for these equipments. And as far as the concerns are there in the longer run, only sometimes due to limited availability of domestic supply chain. I mean, all items, maybe electrical, particularly electronic items, they are not available in India. We are dependent on other countries. Sometimes there is a disruption in the supply chain management. And in the ongoing COVID pandemic, there is a definite disruption in the supply chain management domestically as well as internationally. Of course, we are able to manage to some extent because in the earlier days we had bought many of the items and huge inventory was kept. That has come to the rescue of Indian manufacturers, and somehow we are able to survive, and there are no delays in supply of the equipments to the mining industry. But of course, due to COVID, there is abnormal increase in the prices. Overseas suppliers, they have increased the prices abnormally. Transportation costs have gone very high. And at the same time, Indian industry is not willing to pay that much increase. They do not believe on us that so much. Whenever we quote with increased prices, they told no, there would be always increase on a yearly basis, 3%, 2%, 5%, something like that. But over the last 1.5 years, the prices of almost all the, you name it, steel, bearings, or many of the things, it has gone by 50%, 60%, 80% in some things like that. So we are finding it very difficult to convince Indian industry regarding this increase in the prices, which has happened across the globe. So this is one of our concern. And financially, it is giving a lot of, you can say, pressure, stress on our company. And in the coming day, and as far as sir, this skilling of the people is involved, because many of the mining industry, they are buying now equipments with all these mark contracts and all. OEM themselves, they are taking care of the skilling of their own people deployed at site. In addition to that, we provide training to the operators and the other staff in the ecosystem to enhance the skilling. But to my mind, another why our skilled manpower is depleting, particularly in mining industry, is it comes to my mind. I may be wrong. Our mechanical force, say it ITI people, mechanical, electrical, or mechanical, electrical engineer, their interest of work in mining, at the mining pit heads, or maintenance of the machines, it has come down. Probably they are low paid IT industry where they are paying them high. So they are getting attracted towards there. The people going towards this maintenance or operation category for these machines, it is going down. So to my mind, that point came ki I think those engineers are low paid. That's why they are not getting attracted towards this industry. So this may be a point for debate, but looks to be okay. And as far as fuel efficiency and other things are there for these mining industry, of course, nowadays equipments are embedded with many of the electronic gadgets, and they are quite fuel efficient. But in the longer run, of course, these electrical equipments would be the to remove the dependency on this fuel, particularly diesel and electrical equipments is the demand of the hour. And we are also trying to foray in those equipments. At the moment, maybe construction equipments would come first, followed by mining equipments, or maybe a hybrid type of technology is also coming in the foray. Maybe in the span of next 3 to 4 years, this hybrid technology may become proper. I think I covered many of the points what minor, I mean, in the beginning, the contest was set by Mr. Chakravarti. I am open to answer any question. Thank you, sir.
No, thank you. Thank you. It was quite comprehensive, Mr. Kumar. I must say that. I think you have touched upon all the areas that was kind of discussed in the previous speakers, including my initial presentation. May I ask a question? I mean, we all know that as far as innovation is concerned, okay, like you are saying that reverse betting at the PSU companies is not helping the cause to be innovative, okay, because then you are actually thinking about your cost in order to be competitive in the marketplace rather than bringing in new things. If those are not appreciated by the buyers, then where do you get your money from? So I'm aware of those challenges. I'm also aware of the additional investments that original equipment manufacturers has to make in order to be more, if I may say, ESG compliant based on the norms that will be thrown at you. I'm also cognizant of the fact that in terms of the expectations of the industry, they want sophisticated equipment, okay, latest technology enabled equipment, okay. So how the business case of these additional investments that can be appreciated by the ecosystem, okay, that in the long run, if you want to calculate not on an L1 basis, but more as a kind of a total cost of ownership kind of basis. So how this industry can move from an L1 concept to a TCO concept for procurement of equipment so that the value is kind of appreciated and not just the price of equipment or the services. What is your plan? How the industry can work together towards that goal?
Yeah, definitely, sir. See, like just I will give a very rough example. I am owning some Samsung mobile. In that, thousands of features are there. But I think I am using only for WhatsApp calling or some of the feature, maybe 4, 5, 6 features I am able to use. Balance 100 left out features I am unable to use. So our Indian industry, definitely they have to study what exactly we need in our minds. So a lot of technology is available abroad, which may not be required for our Indian industry. Like this autonomous, driverless train, this dumpers or equipments. Of course, in the longer run, it may be required, but at the moment, it is not required. So we need to study in what the minimum requirement we need for the equipments to run in our particular mine. So according to that, we should come out with the NIT or RFP or for those equipments. Then I think all the suppliers, they would be able to supply at a competitive price because, buying everything and not utilizing, it is a waste of money. So that is my take on that. In that way, whatever minimum features are defined by the mining industry, we can supply that and definitely indigenously develop. so that it will cater to the demand at a later date also. Whenever, I mean, although this thing may not happen in a very bad scenario, in the worst scenario, there may be a war between India, Japan, India, US, or something like that. There is one industry who can, support mining industry indigenously.
Excellent, excellent. I take your point that it is up to how do you
Can I add one
design
point?
the RFP. Yes, yes, Mr. Datta, you're from so sir, you are the joint general manager, mining machinery
No.
business unit
Just
from L&T.
Mr. Chakravarti,
Yeah.
just I wanted to add one thing. What Mr. Pawan Kumar said from BML.
Yeah.
Sure.
He rightly said that I am having a Samsung mobile or any mobile, but many features are there, but I am not using it. That is true. For which I am paying for it, though I am not
Yes.
using it, because it is
Correct.
already inbuilt. You told very correctly. This needs some understanding of the data. Actually, if I say that in my production cost, this uses of equipment, some amount is there, suppose so 10%, 5% or 8%. If I am able to do it in a course of time, then I can open it to the suppliers that you please come forward. This is my amount. There I can bargain and say, you study it and what is the features required for my operation, for my this one. I think that can be looked into, but it will take some time to generate a database for that first, to go into that. Because now for the company, since it is a competitive market, so we are going for both the type of seal bidding and the reverse auction also, to see who comes to lower price. I fully agree with you. That may take some more time to study the data. Then we can say, this is my requirement. You give me equipment as per this and you do it. Where unnecessary features or unnecessary items may not be required, it will bring down the overall cost also. It's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
I think very valid point raised by
valid
Mr.
point.
Mohanty.
Very
Yeah,
valid.
and before I call in Mr. Datta to add his thoughts on this, I think one of the aspects that we also need to recognize that it is not about the mining companies working on the RFP specifically. It is also not about that the original equipment manufacturers is giving 100 features and out of that 90 are not being used. It needs to have a kind of a dialogue between the two segments so that we can identify that what exactly is needed. Point taken. Mr. Datta, would you like to come in here and share your thoughts as well?
Yeah, Vidyut, good afternoon, everyone. I am Anjan Datta from Larsen & Toubro, and we represent Komatsu range of mining products for the Indian territory. It is a very interesting discussion regarding how do you evaluate equipment and all that. So I would like to bring one point when we talk about LCC, that life cycle based costing, or TCO, total cost of ownership. We are only talking about the numerator, that is the cost part. One very important factor which we miss out is why we are buying this equipment. We are buying this equipment for doing certain production. So where is that ton, that when we say cost per ton, so where is that production aspect in this whole calculation? So I think Pawan spoke about the features. Mr. Mohanty also said he had his points on how to evaluate those features. I think that some sort of mechanism must be created wherein the necessary features which aid in production, especially production, safety, all these things, they can be brought into certain sort of metrics to evaluate or to give certain score as far as different bidders are concerned. That can be one way of going forward, I presume. That was my input.
Sure, sure. And I mean, just to, take forward your point only, Mr. Datta. Today, everybody wants to implement digital. Everybody wants to imbibe the latest technologies. And the mine owner also, in order to have a proper grip on its operations, they want to have a proper MIS floating around at the right level at the right frequency and all that. So as far as data is concerned, across all data, which also includes the equipment level data, and they want a single version of truth. They don't want that data to be manually fed in the system and then the intelligent reports coming up. So what data is an important data and what data is a critical data, So from the criticality point of view, the OEMs also need to think through that what sort of features I need to build in, which are absolutely critical for the mine owner to know, okay, to the performance of the equipment and how is it delivering and all that. I mean, a deep diving below MTTF, MTBR, and other things. So point taken, sir. I think good discussion. So we are towards the close of our first session before moving into the next session. Mr. U. Kumar, sir, would you like to have a closing remarks for the session before we move into the next one? Mr. Kumar, if you're there, Upendra Kumar, sir. Okay. I think sir probably is not there, and probably we are also running around 25-30 minutes late into our discussion. So maybe we can move over to the next session, which is essentially the issues around technology upgradation and skilling. And some of those points have already been touched upon by the previous speakers. But in this particular session, we specifically would like Mr. Datta from L&T, Anjan Datta, who is Joint General Manager, Mining Machinery Business Unit. And also we would like to hear from Kanchanabha Bhattacharya, who is the President Corporate Strategy from Tega Industries. Would like to hear their views as well.
Mr. Secretary, just forgive me, I was there, but it was gone on muting. I'd just
No
like
problem,
to add
sir.
a word.
You can have a closing remarks.
Just one sentence. I compliment ASSOCHAM, but the way you structured it, I think that their objective has been largely met. And the various aspects of the equipment design, equipment utilization, equipment procurement, everything has been covered. I'm sure such webinars will be very useful for the industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Okay. So Mr. Kanchanabha Bhattacharya, who is the President Corporate Strategy Tega Industries. Mr. Bhattacharya, if you are there, sir,
Yes.
on the points about technology upgradation and skilling, if you would like to share your thoughts, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chakraborty. Thank you for inviting me over, and also congratulations to the other dignitaries for sharing your thoughts. I think it's been a rather rich session so far. Just to give a brief overview of what we are into as Tega, we are into specialized components for the mining industry, mainly into the consumable space, but also into the equipment space. For us, when it comes to technology upgradation, I think the issues, especially given the significant churn that we foresee in India and in the years to come, would be around the availability of right set of ecosystem for R&D. I think while we have R&D capabilities in pockets, the availability of doing R&D in a manner which is from a resource and time perspective acceptable to a consumer industry is probably a gap that we've got to bridge still. And hence, once this gap is bridged, probably our orientation to look outward for technologies would also be disincentivized to that extent. It's already happening. There are some, we are into collaborations with certain organizations, institutes in the country, and we are getting excellent results. But the ecosystem is a different word altogether. So I think we've got to reach that ecosystem stage when it comes to technology, or within the technology bracket, the R&D dimension, rather quickly. As an associated subset of R&D, probably the moment we get into experimentation, the moment we want to get into prototyping, there are challenges with respect to availability of very specific equipment in a manner and sort of both from a cost, time, and resource requirement perspective, where, for example, if you were to compare other countries which have moved ahead in the ladder, they have these infrastructures available. So for example, if you're doing a prototyping and you require quantities which are maybe less than a ton, but you require very specialized equipment, very specialized steel, it could be casting, it could be forged, it could be a new variant of steel altogether, that becomes a little challenging for us to get. And until organizations reach such scale where they could be usefully implemented, we continue to face that challenge. As far as skill set is concerned, I think a lot has been spoken about it, and I fully agree with what has been discussed. I think where we face challenges is not only in terms of availability of the right skill of labor, and this could be from a foreman to a sales and distribution person, or a service person altogether. There is a significant amount of, I wouldn't say upskilling, but let's say skill mapping needs to be a little more efficient than where we are today. Upskilling is a big word. So maybe the specific skill set that is needed by a consumer industry would need to be addressed by the universities, the ITI institutes, the schools, depending on what the requirements are. That's a deficiency that we are facing, and I'm fairly certain that in the days to come, those will be resolved, especially what COVID has taught us in terms of the dissemination of knowledge, the way knowledge delivery is done today. And we've already started seeing a lot of positive results associated with that. Districts are coming together and stating very clearly, if you want to do this, we can support you in a manner which is appropriate. We are seeing that, but that's a movement that needs to continue going forward. Apart from the skill map issue and the technology issue, both with respect to availability of R&D ecosystem as well as the manufacturing ecosystem that we briefly touched upon. One of the other things that we probably could look at is from a diplomatic support. Whenever we want to move with our technology, with our equipment to a country outside of India, there probably a little bit of or more support on the diplomatic front would be rather useful. While India is improving when it comes to ease of doing business, and we are doing remarkable, improvements on that. When it comes to the ability to replicate that effort that we are putting as an Indian organization into other countries, if we was to speak about expansion, if we were to speak about investment in other countries, there probably the diplomatic machinery could be a little more efficient. I think these are the only points that I would want to raise.
So thank you, Mr. Bhattacharya, for touching upon the important element about innovation and R&D. I completely recognize the fact that as a country, as a culture of R&D, we are probably one of the laggards. And the data suggests that our R&D spending as a percentage of GDP is hovering around that 0.6%. Whereas if you look at the other advanced nations, they spend around 2.5 to 3% of their GDP only towards R&D. So as a culture, we probably need to have that transformation in place. As far as mining is concerned, we need to create that collaborative platform somewhere so that everybody can put in, keeping aside their sole interest of selling, can actually resolve some of the operational issues that we are facing at the field level, and can come forward to resolve them at a collaborative platform. And there can be a collaboration between the industry and the academia in that regard. So point well taken. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. If I may now request Mr. Anjan Kumar Datta, who is the Joint General Manager, Mining Machinery Business Unit at L&T, to share your thoughts, please.
Thank you,
Mr. Datta.
Yeah, thank you. And once again, a very good afternoon to you, Kumar sir, and all the panelists, the distinguished panelists who are present here. We at L&T, we are the authorized distributors for Komatsu mining equipment for the territory of India. And primarily we deal with the open cast mining. So my views and my thoughts will be limited to open cast mining equipment from Komatsu. As far as digitization and technology usage and skill upgrading is concerned, we are doing whatever is possible from our side at L&T. And in recent years, there are few areas which we have tried to address very, very specifically. When we talk about skill, the first thing which comes to mind is maybe the skill of the technician or the operator. But the ambit of skill also in recent times has widened. For example, I mean, selection of equipment, the right equipment is also a skill. So there we engage in the pre-sales activity with our customers and we try to analyze which are the various fleet options which might be suitable for their application. There we use various tools like production simulation tools we have to see which are the best suited solution for a given mine. And all these tools, they have the option like whatever are the mine specific constraint you can feed there so that the data which gets thrown out of it is very, very specific and very particular to that particular mines and the related challenges. Similarly, after supply of equipment, of course, operator training and simulator training, those have become quite normal today. We go one step forward. We get into the KPIs of our customers and try to see what type of continuous improvement we can bring to his operations. Many a times we have seen that a mines and operation looks absolutely fantastic from a distance. Whatever are their stated KPIs, they are being achieved. But when we go there, we do their analysis. We have got sophisticated tools wherein, say, a haul road can be divided into very, very small segments. And with usage of those tools, we can actually analyze, say, what is the fuel consumption for that. I'm just giving an example for that particular segment of the haul road. And then we analyze whether any improvement is possible or not. Similarly, for operators, it is not only the operator, how he is driving, whether he is using the available features of the machine. We talked a little while earlier regarding the features which are of usage or not so useful. But I can tell you the most of the features which comes from reputed manufacturers like Komatsu, they are actually useful. Many a times they are not used. So we get into the detail, we analyze each and every operator and see whether he is making the right use of all the tools which are available, all the features which are available on the machine. So it is not only production, it is also a safe production, what we try to encourage by usage of all the technological tools available with us. And all these tools, I'm very happy to share, are available for Indian customers today, and we are already using it with many of our good premium customers. Yeah, Vidya.
Thank you, Mr. Datta. I think we have some time left in our hand, because Mr. Bhattacharya and Mr. Datta have been very, very sharp and focused in terms of sharing their views. Just in order to carry forward the discussion for the next 5 to 10 minutes, before I will request again Mr. Kumar to have the final say. I have a couple of questions for the panelists, and any one of you can choose to respond to this. Okay. We have actually been hearing about this ESG a lot. Okay. And as Vision 2047 is being framed by the government of India across the ministries, okay, there is an enhanced focus on decarbonization in particular. So there are certain norms that probably may be formulated and promulgated for the mining industry to adhere to. Okay. So in this context, as original equipment manufacturers, okay, in India, how are you planning to be compliant, okay, over the next, say, 3 to 5 years to the ESG norms? Okay. how is it going to be possible to be really compliant to those kind of norms in India? I mean, that is my question number one. The second question is about the adoption of intelligent automation, IoT, and other digital technologies. That expectation from the industry is there that they want a connected enterprise sort of ecosystem. Okay. So in looking at the maturity of adoption of IT stroke digital in Indian mining industry, what is the view of the panel that how far we are in terms of getting to that advanced automation stage from now? Is it going to happen broadly in the next 2 years, or do you think it will take next 5, 6, 7 years to really call ourselves digitally enabled Indian mining ecosystem? So those are the two questions on the table for the panels to respond, please. Anyone who wants to kind of respond? Mr. Pavan Kumar, Mr. Datta, or anyone who wants to respond?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I would like to address it first, Vidyut.
Yeah, Mr.
Very valid point.
Yeah.
Yeah, very valid point you mentioned. And the good thing is now we are witnessing an increased demand from the market on similar lines. Like earlier, people used to discuss only about equipment purchase it per se, or at most they used to evaluate equipment plus maybe X years of maintenance contract. But now people want us to come up with a solution wherein we can do a total integration. In fact, some of the customers are even talking to us for a complete fuel management system. If you can bring somebody on board where fuel theft and all that can be prevented. So it's a very, very interesting world which is evolving. And I believe that a lot of these IT companies today, they are also focusing on this demand. Say, for example, from Komatsu, we have this modular mining systems. Then L&T is one of our own companies, Mindtree. They are developing a lot of systems to address to this type of requirement. So even these IT companies today, they are coming out with this comprehensive solution to the evolving requirement. It's a very, very interesting thing which is happening. And one thing which is going to aid this is the long-term confidence which Indian industry is having in the mining. We had a phase, maybe earlier part of previous decade, when the confidence got shaken because of, we know what happened in the coal industry, particularly and a little bit in iron ore. But today with the amendment of MMDR Act, we find the allocation of mineral resources is very, very transparent. Of course, when a change happens, there will be questions raised, so people were apprehensive. But last 2 years, we are seeing a lot of traction. A lot of these MDO mines are coming up. Many of the MDO mines, which initially started with small construction class of equipment, today they have got that confidence to invest in proper mining equipment considering next 10, 12, 15 years of operation. Some of the large iron ore mines which got auctioned in Odisha 2 years back, they are finalizing order for mining equipment, considering that things will be going on smoothly for next 10 years, 12 years time. So once that happens, I think all these companies, all those players, they will get more confidence to invest in a proper digitization solution, not only for the equipment per se, but looking into all other aspects of mining, right from how the mine progresses, that from the mine progression, wherein you can get day-wise, shift-wise production targets, then equipment, then fuel management, operator onboarding. So all those modules people have developed, and these are the people who are going to play a very, very important role of an integrator to give a comprehensive solution to Indian mining customers.
Thank you, Mr. Datta. Mr. Kumar, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I would like to supplement. Anyway, I agree with Mr. Datta. So nowadays, the demand is coming definitely for these digital, you can say, dashboards or certain whatever information. Here, I would like to just classify into one is private miners, you can say private sector and government. In India, mostly this is PSU oriented mining companies are there, whether it is iron ore or coal. I think in government companies, it will take some time to adopt this digitalization in a full-fledged manner. So in a partial manner, of course, people have started using it. The equipment are available with the vehicle health monitoring system and all things. Those data can be captured, but it is not being captured by all the users. That's I would say. It can be data can be captured, data can be used, and downloading and all. But very limited people, very limited user there. Although they have purchased this facility, but from users' point of view, very limited people are using it. And as far as emission norms and all, there definitely, as I mean, I think mining industry may come with these norms from 2024 onwards. But Indian industry at the moment, we do not have local suppliers for such company. I mean, such facility. We depend on particularly USA or Japanese companies or other abroad. And then we are trying to indigenize, but it's taking a bit time because volumes are also very limited. And the kind of supply chain of these items available in India is very, very limited. Of course, we may engage some local agency, they in turn import and give. So that is not the actual this thing. As far as manufacturing in India is concerned, it's very limited for such things. That's what I would say. Thank you.
Okay. But there is a silver lining at the end of the day, what I take from both of you. And there has been some concerted efforts put in by the players in the ecosystem towards the goal. As long as the appreciation of what's coming up in the short term is there by all the stakeholders, I'm sure we'll move towards that goal sooner rather than later. Thank you. Thank you for sharing the views. I think we are at the top of the hour. It has been a fascinating last 2 hours. Very, very enriching discussions from the stalwarts of the industry. Me as an anchor person to drive this has been very, very enriching for me as well. I would like to hand over to Mr. U. Kumar once again, being the senior most member amongst all of us, to kind of say a couple of words before we conclude the session for the day.
Thank you. And just three things. Mr. Kumar talked about the limited order or limited scope of them. See, the industry is very big. The industry in India is going to become bigger by the day. What is lacking is a system for making projections about what is needed in the future. That's why we said the piecemeal requirement comes, and it appears that the volume of the business is not very large. So once what I said in the morning, in the gas session, that if we build up a system or the government builds up a system so that a regular projection is being made about mining equipment's requirement going in future, as the production develops, the technology develops, and that information, if it is available to our manufacturers, I'm sure they are very capable, they have huge resources, and they have very intelligent manpower to capture all that and to convert into a sizable business opportunity. Another two things, like you said about the many features in the equipment which are not being utilized. You see, I rather very poor with this modern systems. When my grandson stays in Bangalore, whenever he comes, he teaches me a few features, and then I start using it, and I find that feature very useful. I would suggest that the mining manufacturers, the mining equipment manufacturers, when they sell their equipment, they teach their operators or they teach their owners the special features that have been incorporated in the equipment, because just for the lack of knowledge, those features may not be getting used. But I'm sure whatever features are provided in the equipment, they are very useful, and they can be operated to the benefit of the consumer, to benefit of the operator, for a very good measure. So that could be thought of by the manufacturers. A second thing, we talk about the mining system or mining equipment being made more amenable to the environmental needs. You see, I'm sure the industry is conscious of it. The problem was 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contract. You see, with that type of contract, nobody had any choice but to procure diesel equipment. You see, I started from NCDC and then came to Coal India. I remember that in NCDC, there were no diesel equipment at all except the dumpers. So this was all electric. But I'm sure once the modern trend is picking up, that means the lifetime contract for the mine, or 20 years or 30 years, the people will go more and more for the electric equipment, which will make these equipment more sympathetic towards the environmental needs. Also, the equipment manufacturers will have to think of the future, that they could think of some hybrid drive for the dumpers. So while it is the dumpers at the face, they can run on diesel, and once they come on the haul road, they could pick up to electricity. I think these modifications should be thought of, and I'm sure going forward these will be thought of. I'm no doubt about it. But I'm sure this type of webinar, this type of knowledge sharing, is going to be highly useful and beneficial to the industry as a whole, and to all the participants in the industry, the users of the equipment, the manufacturers of the equipment, even those who are maintenance, who are responsible for the maintenance. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity once again. And to ASSOCHAM, I wish you all the best in their efforts for making mining a progressive industry. Thank you.
So thank you, Kumarji. Thanks, Vidyut, for moderating the session very well. And thank you to all the panelists for spending their valuable time to address us in this particular seminar. Also to our sponsors, to our participants, and for the information of all, we are also forming a council on mining equipment industry soon, where all the issue related to mining equipment industry will be addressed towards the government side. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kumar Sahab. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shrikant Sahab, we have forgotten us all together, but I am very happy to see your face.
Sir, we can never forget. Continue to guide us always.
And do think us up
Kindly
sometime.
close it, please.
And
Amit, kindly close
Mr.
it.
Tata, from Larsen to Grow, very nice hearing you. Thank you very much.
Very nice to see you, sir, after a very long time.
Vidyut sir is back, sir.
Naturally, you
Thank
don't
you,
remember
thank
us.
you. Thank you for moderating it. Vidyut, thank you very much. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very kindly.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Amit, close it,
My
please.
pleasure.
Okay,
Nice
sir.
interacting with all
Thank
of
you all, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manti.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Pankaj, good afternoon. When you come to Delhi, please give me a tinkle. Pankaj,
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Pankaj ji. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
हाँ जी कर रहा हूँ क्लोज कर रहा हूँ सब लोग निकल
क्लोज करें अमित
यस सर क्लोज कर रहे हैं सर ओके सर
थैंक यू